Welcome to the Advisory Insights podcast. I'm your host, Dan Horton, CEO of Auraline Advisory. We're a management consulting firm dedicated to one goal, partnering with business leaders to help them turn challenges into opportunities and to create a clear pathway to sustainable growth. For context, this podcast series will be exploring how leaders within the professional services industry are navigating today's trends and challenges and where they're finding success. Now, I'm absolutely thrilled to kick off today's episode by welcoming Michael Coronado, who is the president of Pronto Income Tax, an accounting and tax services firm based in Miami, Florida. Michael helps real estate investors, developers, and trade professionals reduce tax liability and gain financial clarity. As president, he leads a team that delivers proactive accounting, strategic tax planning, and back office CFO support. From rentals to development, Michael provides aggressive but fully compliant tax strategies and long-term guidance to help his clients grow and protect their wealth, which I'm very keen to learn a lot more about today. Thank you for joining me, Michael. Welcome to the show. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you, Dan. No, thank you. I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Really, really well, thank you. Really, really well. Other than, I think I'm like a broken record, unfortunately, at the moment. I talk about the weather more than I need to, unfortunately, which is it's not too great here in the UK at this point in time. It's smack bang in the middle of November. It's to be expected, but it doesn't make things any better. But other than that, all is great. Thank you. But thank you for joining me. I appreciate that's quite a high level overview as to yourself, and I'm really keen, Mike, if you wouldn't mind being able to just give a bit more sort of depth as to your career to date, and bring us up to the present day, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thanks so much, Dan. This is a family business. We started in 1991, so we're going to be celebrating 35 years come January.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we started off as my family, my father, my mother started the firm, and after 35 years of being Pronto Income Tax, which is what we really started with, was that's when electronic filing started. When you were able to get refund anticipation loans, that was a big deal, right? It used to take months to get a refund check from the IRS, and you were able to now give folks a refund check in 24 to 48 hours. That's really what kind of springboarded us into what we are today. So we started off as Pronto Income Tax, and that name has really served us well. But we've continued to evolve as the industry has evolved in tax and as well as accounting. There's different tools, there's different things, and so as we've evolved away from tax and more from tax preparation and more into accounting, tax planning, tax strategy, tax advisory, we've come to see that it makes more sense for us to transition in the near term our name to really reflect who we are, what we do, what's the value that we provide, away from the income tax, but still keeping to our heritage of Pronto and moving towards Pronto Advisory, which is much more of what we do. Our role is really to advise our clients, to provide education, to make sure that they're making the right decisions based on information that is adequate and appropriate, and like you said, aggressive and compliant, right? So we want to be aggressive, but we want to be compliant, and we want to make sure that it's what makes the most sense for them and what their goals are. And that's really how our business has transitioned, as well as we still service a multitude of different industries, and most of our clients, however, aside from whatever their standard businesses, they own real estate. So we have real estate developers and contract and general contractors and such, but we also have folks who are physicians and who are involved in real estate. So really, a big core of our business is working with folks in real estate and helping them kind of take advantage of different levers that they could pull being in real estate. Whereas if they went to a kind of generalist accountant, they wouldn't necessarily know why a cost segregation study makes sense. What does a cost segregation study cost? What is the different, what is the potential value for them from having a cost segregation study? And if I know you're gonna ask me that question and say it depends, right? It's gonna depend on the certain circumstances, contrary to what all those social media videos and Instagrams and YouTube say, like you shouldn't, you must, you have to. Like it's really 9 times out of 10 when I get a question from a client, my response is it depends, and it really does depend on what your specific scenario is.
No, I really appreciate you sharing that, and it feels at the moment like there's Very much a lot of excitement in and around the sort of changes that are falling, and obviously to go through a rebrand, it's based on, like you say, the ever evolving landscape. And I'm really keen to sort of ask yourself as well, Michael, based on your experience, more, I suppose, directly aligned to more of the delivery of the services that you provide. How have you found the sort of, I know you've mentioned a direct case from when the business started and sort of where things have got to now, but how do you see the sort of delivery of the services that you provide changing, both as of right now, but also into the future as an advisory firm with that change of brand as well?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think there's, we've been maybe slower than I would have liked to adopt some of the current technology trends, and I think that the technology is allowing us to uh, provide more, I guess, high tech, high touch is really how I would really like to say it, uh, in terms of delivery of our services. So we've transitioned away. Um, from the hyper manual, very paper focused, to being fully digitized, being able to now, the buzzword is everything is AI, and not everything is AI, because as we found even in the accounting industry, there's lots of things that say they're AI and they really aren't there where they claim to be. So there are some advantages to some of those tools, because and what that allows us to do is spend less time doing and more time talking, more conversation with our clients to really understand what are their goals, what are their motivations, right? Because there's you could have two clients with the same scenarios and whose motivations may be different, and that you need to kind of guide them based on that, right? Well, is their motivation to retire soon and have recurring revenue? Are they in their earlier stages of their career where they're looking to grow their capital and care less about the ongoing income, right? So they're really these, you look at technology, and now uh, technology wouldn't know that, right? And that's when I say the high tech and high touch, that's really where you differentiate yourself from the tools. And I think that that's what's really allowed us to grow. I think that the ability to do these things also provides us the opportunity to give more data intensive insight that we couldn't do previously. uh, and I think that there's also a lot of opportunities now because of legislation, and because folks, many folks, like I said, we've been in business for 35 years. I met with yesterday some clients who've been with us for 25 years. And so we've gone through their transition of growing in their career, in their business, and now in a semi-retired state, and thinking of investing in a startup, and working on all of these things. And so, we now are able to look at things that we weren't looking at before because of the different stages of folks, and then become much more of that advisor, right? So that's why I'm going to keep hammering it, right? That's why we moved to that Pronto Advisors, because we're really in this advisory role. Compliance is important, and I think that that's the baseline, but we're able to go beyond that um, now.
No, absolutely. I really appreciate you sharing that, and it was absolutely going to be a topic of conversation around the usage of AI. And you're absolutely right in your assessment around what is truly an AI software or tool or what have you. But what I think the fundamental part of this is, and what I'm having multiple conversations of in the market at the moment, is the usage of it becoming an enabler. It's enabling things to either become more streamlined, to become more efficient, but there's going to be no substitute for the relationship. So the discussion base, the expertise at hand, and also dealing with the emotion and around those decision making sort of activities. Is that sort of what your sort of take is as well, of using it to its capacity to enable you to have those more frequent conversations and deliver that value?
Absolutely, yes, because we're now able to run. There's the human side of it, but there is it's really, some of the tools allow you to get some of that anomalies figured out, and some maybe hidden trends that maybe you wouldn't see at first sight. But then there's, it's missing the piece where, right? Uh, A perfect example is a client who sold a property and so had a major deposit. So an AI tool would have said, this company is going up, right? Because they just had $500,000 deposited into their account that was separate from their general ongoing business. So I think they do work kind of hand in hand to really deliver a much more comprehensive view that you couldn't maybe necessarily get before. But yes, there's lots of limitations in what the AI companies go out there and say that they're doing, and even some of the tools and what they deliver, and then what you actually obtain once you actually sit down with them and see, look, this is really what we could do, and you realize they're nowhere near the marketing. The marketing is way ahead, and I think also it's funny that AI is like the sexy term, right? But before that, it was machine learning, and folks don't use that as much. But a lot of it was just machine learning about the data. And so I think that becomes actually more important, especially in accounting, is learning what does this data mean. Hey, I'll take our accounting practice. It's seasonal in nature. Revenues and expenses are also fluctuate throughout the year, is different, and every business has that seasonality. And so I think just taking it and oh no, December was great, the whole year is going to be great. Well, in the accounting industry, it's not, right? It's generally a low month. But if you have a retail store, it's a great month, right? And so I think that the machine learning component of AI is really, I think, where it becomes much more useful in this accounting advisory role.
Sure. I'm going to use sort of an analogy that is sort of directly in line with AI usage, which is prompt engineering. And the reason why I use that, it's still got to be strategically outputted by the individual to get to the final destination. It's not going to completely remove the need of that oversight, I think is the most important thing. And if it's being conducted in a sequential manner that gets you to your final goal, but it's being oversighted and approved and reviewed, that's where there's going to be some gains to be made, but it's certainly not going to be a complete replacement as a one size fits all to completely remove the need of X, Y, or Z. Is that sort of what your
Yeah,
assessment is as well?
absolutely. I mean, if you go back to like a calculator, the same thing. It's only as good as the operator putting in the calculations into a calculator, or even Excel, right? Because if Excel outputs data, well, how good are the formulas, or does this make sense, right? You still have to have this, litmus test of, does this really make sense? Does this fall in line with my expectations? If not, why? Because I think that's the other thing, right? You can't just, as you mentioned, like the prompt engineering, you can't just say, well, is it right? Did I put the right prompts in? Did I put the right formulas in? Did I give it the right uh, data set? Am I missing other components? And I think, yes, that's absolutely where the value is. Um,
100%. 100%. No, I really appreciate you sharing that. And it's always good to get, the insights around sort of how that's sort of being used in various different businesses. And I'm sure, some of the clients that you work with are also experimenting in how can they, have better efficiencies, how can they have better workflows, and there is certainly substitutes there that can be used through AI or machine learning, or however the term is phrased, process automation, one way, shape, or another. But it's just to take things slightly back towards yourself, Michael. In terms of your career, I'm keen to understand, is accounting and finance and sort of tax planning been something that you wanted to do based on sort of the influence from your family and having that business, or was it just a general sort of direction that you wanted to take, for yourself, when you made the decision to move into the industry?
Yeah, so there was a large kind of transition in my life. So when I was 7, my dad bought a computer at home. So it was before he even opened the business, and he was doing he had a day job as an accountant, and he was doing accounting and mostly tax prep during tax season at home. So our deal was I got to use the computer, and and if I got to use a computer, had to do data entry for him. So because he didn't want to do data entry, so I did lots of data entry for my father, and that's where I started really learning about data accuracy and accounting and all that. But I really was fascinated by computers, and although when he opened the office, in the early 90 in 91, and I was, I was very much involved, but I was also always very much, how do we implement technology to make it better? How do we, we get a network? And so I went off and strayed a little bit from, even though being in the family business, and it strayed towards technology and more that field. But found my way back, because as I started a career in enterprise technology and I worked at, Fortune 100 companies, I found my way back into the business of technology and the financial aspects. I was, worked very for a number of years in what's called cloud FinOps, so financial operations, and that was where I was also able to provide a lot of value, because the same thing, there were tools that gave you information, and it did standard deviations to figure out where your spend in the cloud. That's basically what FinOps is. And I joined organizations and was, part of the first folks who got certified in it. And so I found my way like back to, no, this financial aspect is definitely what I enjoy, but I also enjoy the people aspect of it. I had, moved away from South Florida, which is where we are located. I was living in Dallas, but COVID came and gave the opportunity to come back to home. And so I came back, to Miami and rejoined the firm fully, right? I was always a part, but in terms of 100% full time, kind of came back as a result of the pandemic. But I think that the career progression of being outside and seeing larger enterprises and how they operate, the I say the inefficiencies of efficiency, uh and so there were things that they did wrong, right? And then because they have folks who only do one thing, whereas a smaller enterprise, you have folks who do multiple things, right? And so, but there's benefits of how do you structure your business, and how do you measure what you're working through. How do you make sure that the work is being delivered appropriately? And that's a lot of what we do is, how do we elevate this customer experience? That's what I learned, right? I learned how do you, I had internal customers more than external, but same thing. How were my internal customers affected? How was their experience? Were they receiving the information? Were they receiving the level that they were expecting from me? And then how did that, come back here and say, well, now how do we implement these technological tools, a portal, electronic signatures, and a lot of this came out of COVID, right? But a lot of it came from, this desire to kind of move the practice forward. I have way more clients that I meet through Zoom or Google Meet than I do meet in person now, because it's just the nature of things, which also allows them to stay on with us as they move throughout the country, and also allows us to gain customers across the country.
Sure. And how do you build and maintain those strong relationships with clients? And sort of, do you have a philosophy as a business to sort of service and ensure that you have that client retention over time, and from onboarding new clients all the way through to long-standing clients?
That's actually a great example. So in our accounting, we one of the things when I came back, I heard from folks was, gee, I signed up with you guys, and I didn't have uh I didn't know what was going on. And so first thing I set out to embark on was, let's have an onboarding process that actually has a startup meeting, touch a key contact person. What are the stages? What are the steps? What do we need from you? What have we received to date, and what are the next steps? And then when do we go into kind of maintenance mode for the accounting? So I think we did a lot of that. The same thing for tax. We didn't really have a good way of onboarding new clients of, hey, here are the things we need from you. Here's how we're going to be successful in this relationship. So I think that was the first part. The second part, to me, was in accounting and both in tax, we spend a lot of time with our clients, but because now we have, but sometimes we were limited because we had a lot more manual work. But now that we have some technology tools, we're able to spend more time. And I still like to spend a lot of time at education. My clients, I'd like for them to leave understand. Look, you're going to have heart surgery. You want to understand what's going on, right? You're not doesn't mean you're going to be able to perform the heart surgery, but you want to at least know what's going on. And I feel the same thing with the accounting and tax work that we do, or a tax plan for a client. We want them to understand, have a general understanding of what's going on, have the buy-in of what it is. So that's where I think we really provide the value. No one leaves here without understanding what happened, what happened this year, what's going to happen next year, what's our plan for next year's. So I think that, those two were kind of integral steps. The second one we were already doing, but now we had the luxury of more time because of the tools and some changes in our processes as well. And then lastly, especially for tax work or when work was getting completed, we were now getting much more vocal with our clients. So we're communicating a lot more. And that's part of also the technology tools to let them know, hey, your tax return was completed. Hey, this work that we're working on for you has been completed. Here's your updated reports. Here are these updated deliverables, and that you can now see them. So I think that communication piece, because that's been enabled by the technology, but it's stuff that we were doing all along. I think overall, then that gives folks the understanding of, hey, how do I work with you? What's going on? And then, okay, great, everything's done. I don't have to worry about anything else, right? And so I think that just kind of closes the cycle, and it makes people, happy, right? And like I said, I had a meeting yesterday with folks who've been clients for 25 years. They had a question because they were embarking on a transaction and they wanted to understand what were the potential tax implications, or if there were any, and how should they be structuring that. And I think that's the value that we provide, as opposed to kind of a one and done. You came and you did your taxes and that's it, right? If now this was a simple question, if you want to do a more elaborate tax plan, we also offer that. And that's the second part of it, right? When you do a tax plan, you build a plan and it needs to be executed. And we actually help support the execution from start to finish, as we monitor it and make sure that it's completed so that you are actually obtaining that tax benefit. So, aggressive and compliant. Well, we got to be aggressive. We got to be compliant. We got to have make sure we document these things. We're going to do it. And we got to do it on a timely basis.
No, absolutely. And it's absolutely clear that it's a journey from start to finish, but also ensuring that the clients that you're speaking with are kept up to date, the frequency of that, but also, as you rightly say, it's the education of that in one way, shape, or form, of ensuring that any client that walks through the door, whether it's a small piece of work or a large piece of work, they go with peace of mind that everything's been done to the highest of standards, and that they can rest knowing that it's all been taken care of.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. One thing I would like to ask, Michael, and then this is something that sort of I'm curious of, and also the listeners as well, that I'm sure would like to understand. Obviously, from a business owner's perspective, I know that you mentioned that you've had, an interesting career to date around sort of different roles, but now in your current capacity, in your current business, what does a typical day and typical week look like for you now? And can it differ from week to week?
Yes. I think during the tax season, it's a lot. It's a lot of work because you have a short time frame. I think most folks don't realize there's about 12 weeks where you've got to get all these tax returns uh, filed or extensions filed. And I think the intricacies that people don't realize is, if you have an extension, use an extension of time to file, but not an extension of time to pay. So you do have to do some work to figure out, do you owe money? And if so, let's send some money before the deadline. And so that's I think that's the overall strategy that we would that we embark. So those 12 weeks are intense. Those are long days. We generally work Saturdays during those 12 weeks, and it's a lot about delivery, but a lot of it is delivery of what we've already been planning for the whole previous year. But as a business owner, a lot of my time is spent on business development, is spent on operations and ensuring that the team is working on delivery of our services, that we are meeting our deadlines, right? So we have work to do. What are the deadlines? Are they being met? Are we meeting our clients' expectations? And if not, are we communicating that? So a lot of my time is spent on that. So business development, operations are a major part. Also, just overall, I'll call it human resources or people capital, is just how do you get your team? How do you help them grow as individuals? How do you help them grow as a team? How do you attract talent, right? And in accounting right now, that is extremely difficult. So now, I'm working with the local universities to set up an internship program and begin recruiting talent, because there's less and less people who want to do accounting. They don't find it sexy. Uh, and I think it's if they're thinking of just the mundane part, it isn't sexy. But there are interesting components of accounting. So there's a lot of that, of just making sure, how do we not just meet today's needs, right? So that's operations, but how do we meet and delivery? But how do we meet future needs with business development, with human capital? How do we get attract talent in the future? So there's part strategy, part operations, but it's a very it's a fun time, and I think a lot of I do try to spend like my Friday mornings I try to spend on doing like fun things, and I mean that by like evaluating new tools or working on like more creative things. I try not to see client outside of tax season. I try not to see clients on Fridays in general, but it's Friday mornings, so I could spend this like mental energy on what things do I have to close out for the week? What things are exciting or new that could potentially help us? What improvements can we make as an organization? So I think it's important to allow yourself that time. And it's not just do, but also think, because I think we get as business owners, right, in all industries, you fall into the trap of do, 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 and it's like, well, you have to do, but you got to make sure you're doing the right things that are moving the things forward. Sometimes you don't have a choice, right? Because you're tax season. It's like, gotta go, 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 do. But other times you got to sit down and think, well, how do we make this better? How do we improve this? And that's a prime example in tax season. For example, we have data for our clients of when they generally come, so we try to get our clients to come in sooner than they used to come, because again, we've got those 12 weeks. Every hour of the day is like a seat on a plane. If that plane takes off, I can't sell that seat. And so that hour, and it's not because of selling, it's just because then it becomes, I have lower quality time with clients. So we try to get clients who generally are in January to come in January, to come in February, to try to get them to come in January, March to come in February, April to come in March. I had a client last year who said, this is the earliest I've ever done my taxes for my business. I said, that's great. I'm glad we're doing something right. Uh, and that's the goal, right? The goal is, how do we operate better, but also provide a better experience? If everyone's showing up the last, April 1st to April 15th, they're going to leave with a poor impression of our business, right? And so how do we get them to come sooner? How do we get them to really enjoy that? So I think it's I guess I went off on a tangent on that,
That's
but
great.
it's definitely, there's lots of exciting things, and it's just figuring out how to move the business forward today and tomorrow.
No, I really appreciate you sharing that, and I think it's important from a listener's perspective to understand that it is wide ranging. There is flexibility, there is excitement around helping to try and build a business, but also keep it operating efficiently at the same time. And I really appreciate you giving some feedback around that. And I'm keen to understand. We've discussed a little bit around past and a little bit around present, but in terms of the immediacy and the incoming changes that you're looking from a branding perspective, what vision do you have now for Pronto Advisors coming into 2026, but also past that? It'd be great to get your thoughts around your growth aspirations as a business into the near future and afar.
Yeah, well, so there's lots going on. I think the first part is, how do we continue to attract the right people to work with us so that we can continue to grow? Because I think that's going to be a limiting factor in growth. Whether and that may mean growth through acquisition, in order to not just gain clients, but also gain workforce, right? And I think that's going to be key. But I think in the near term, we have some acquisitions that we're actively investigating that may come to fruition, that will help us potentially double in size, right? And that's just the immediate future. And I think that as we continue to do that, and we continue our business development, and continue to attract high quality candidates to our firm, we will continue to grow. I think that this shift to advisors will also make the conversation a lot easier in a lot of the business development calls and a lot of sales calls. I hate to call them sales calls, but they are sales calls with folks. I get oh, your income tax, I'll come see you in tax season. It's like, that is the worst. If you want the worst possible experience of onboarding, it's to come and become a client of ours on February 15th, because it is very difficult for us to onboard you appropriately. We have, the next 6 weeks are great. Actually, even 8 weeks, all the way to January 15th, are a great time to onboard as a potential client, or especially for the accounting field, right? And so by doing that, the advisors, I think that's going to allow us to get people to think outside of those 12 weeks and think about us as year round, which is really what we do. That's where we really provide the value, right? I'm doing now end of year reviews with my clients, because if there's any last minute changes that they need, adjustments that they need to make based on the plan that we had for them, let's do it now, right? And so my vision is that with this name change, with this growth trajectory, we will double in short order and double again and double again in the next 5 years is really the plan. And I foresee us having a larger footprint in Florida. And I don't go outside of Florida because I think it would be more difficult for me right now to travel so much. But I really foresee us being, when people think of accounting and think of real estate, I want them to think of us. We could, although yes, certainly we could service folks all over the United States, but I foresee our physical footprint growing within Florida, everywhere, Orlando, West Palm Beach, Tampa, I think are interesting areas for us to grow in the coming years.
Oh no, I really appreciate you sharing that, and I obviously wish you all the very best in your success of growing the business, both immediately and into the future as well. If you don't mind me asking, Michael, but there's always two questions that I like to ask all guests
Mhm.
to essentially get their thoughts and insights around, and one being, if you're looking at somebody at the moment and they're thinking about a career path and they're unsure of what to do, what piece of advice would you give to somebody that's potentially wanting to get into the accountancy practice at this point in time?
Well, I think that uh, go beyond. I think that's true of everything, but in accounting and in specific, in particular, I think if you're able to go beyond what's on paper, and I think that's going to be the key for someone to be successful in accounting is study, right? Get, start in a great firm, and now where you could provide, anyone could crunch numbers and give you data back, but can you go beyond what's on the paper? And I think that's going to be the key. How do you, and for some folks, that means less number crunching and more audit, right? There's folks who are wonderful at audit. There's folks who are wonderful at tax, right? So I think there's this idea that accounting is basic number crunching, bookkeeping, balance sheets, and bank reconciliations, and that's part of it. But there's also this ability of how do you differentiate yourself in your career as who's someone who could go beyond what's on paper, and it could be in any of those, even in the basic. There's a lot I could, I sat with a client and did that, right? Just looking at numbers. It's like, hey, this is where you're wrong. This is where you probably have the issue. Your revenue increased, but you somehow reduced your margins, and now your 2x actually ate your margin on the first, first, you went from 2 million to 4 million. The first the profit on the extra 2 million was actually negative. So it ate the profit from the first 2 million. So it made no sense for you to grow to 4 million because top line means nothing, right? And that's something and that's a very simple case where if you could go beyond what's on the paper, that's where you will be extremely successful in not just in accounting, in anything, but it is specifically in accounting.
No, I really appreciate you sharing that, and I'm sure that that's something that individuals can take on board as sort of a pathway to think about their own careers. And in terms of the final question that I'm keen to ask yourself, Michael, obviously being a senior leader and a business owner and having staff, and there's a lot of sort of wide ranging activities you get into. But what would you say is sort of the most rewarding aspect of being in the position that you're in at the moment on a daily basis?
I think uh, every day has a different win, and but I think that when I see that folks are getting the W's, they're getting the wins. And some days it could be a teammate, a team member who's now, because of additional training, are able to now take on much more complex work. If it's a prospective client, when I see them have that aha moment of, aha, I really do, need, that's a W, that's a win. That's a win for me because they've now taken that. So I think, and even for a current client, the same thing, right? When we discover we discover an issue and we work towards a resolution. That's a win. And I think that I'm looking for wins. They could be small, right? It could be a tiny win, like, hey, what happened with this, right? This uh, uh, transaction that looks kind of not legitimate, and it's a tiny transaction, but it's still something to look into that could potentially be, uh, you know, uh, a fraudulent transaction, whatever the case may be. So I think that there's, I'm constantly looking for these wins, and they don't have to be necessarily for me, right? They could be for the clients, or for a prospective client or for a team member. That's the most rewarding part, I would say.
No, I really appreciate you sharing that, and I really appreciate your time, Michael, today, and being able to provide such insights around sort of how to run a business and what it takes to sort of navigate the markets at the moment as well, in particular, and all the wide ranging activities that fall within that. And I'm very keen to ensure that. If anybody is listening and are keen to get in touch to and learn a little bit more about your services, obviously with the pending changes that are afront, what is the best way for people to get in either touch with yourself directly or to learn more about the business?
Absolutely. So they could visit our website, which is Pronto Advisors with an S at the end, advisors.com. Or they could email me, mike@prontoadvisors.com.
Fantastic. Well, everybody, you've heard it there. If you would like to get in touch with Michael or his team, please do visit the website or directly. I believe you're on LinkedIn at the moment as well,
As
Michael,
well,
to,
yes.
to, to get in touch there. And again, thank you so much for the time today and being able to provide such insight. And obviously, it goes without saying, but I hope all goes well with the rebranding in the near future, and also closing out 2025 and that 2026 success, and the acquisitions that you have pending go well.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate you and your
No
time.
problem at all. No problem at all. Well, that's it for today's episode, everyone. Another great and insightful conversation. Thank you for listening. I have been Dan Horton. This has been Advisory Insights, and we will catch you on the next one. Have a good week, all.